Hello once again. Thank you so much for joining us. I said a little bit earlier in the 8 o'clock news update that we would focus more on the U.S. in this half hour. Well, we're delivering now. President Barack Obama has arrived in Ethiopia, the second stop of his East African tour. The country has thousands of troops based in Somalia as part of a peacekeeping force against al-Shabaab. Well, Obama is also scheduled to visit the African Union headquarters in the capital, Addis Ababa, and meet with AU Commission Chair Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. Talks on regional security, human rights matters, they're expected to be high on the agenda there. And to talk to us more about what U.S. President Barack Obama might have to say about his visit to Kenya and also what he's planning to do in Ethiopia, we're joined by Tom Wheeler, an independent commentator. Always a pleasure to have you with us in studio. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Let's speak a little bit about that much-anticipated visit to Kenya. He had gone there prior to him being president. There were high hopes that he was now going to be a son of the soil, that he was going to come and save Africa as our own little representative, as it were. Do you think he has lived up to those expectations?
Well, you know, I think the President of the United States has many more responsibilities than looking after the country or the continent that was his father's, his father being a Kenyan. So I think it's a bit unrealistic to expect that he would devote a great deal of his time to Africa. I think perhaps at this stage, where perhaps some of the pressure's off on the issues with Russia and Ukraine and various other areas, that he has more time perhaps to devote to Africa now, and that's why he's able to come and spend almost a week in Africa, in two countries anyway, and look at the various problems of East Africa.
Is it also because perhaps it can benefit the U.S. to a certain extent, especially when it comes to security matters on the continent? You can name them, Boko Haram, whatever, various radical extremist groups. In Kenya, we saw the bombings there in various parts of the continent, as I said. So is this him, you know, he's here, but not so much for us, but to secure their interests in the States?
Well, I suppose as the President of the United States, it's a fair statement. But I think what he is promoting, as it were, is better interests between Africa and the United States. At the moment, the United States is a big donor to Africa. He's working on the idea that it would be better to grow a class of young entrepreneurs who can do business with the United States. So move away from aid, from development aid, move towards a business relationship which is in the interests of both countries. Now, there are a few things that will continue. The PEPFAR, the program for dealing with AIDS, which was started by his predecessor, George W. Bush, that continues, and also the tuberculosis program in South Africa that is funded by the United States Agency of International Development. But he went to Nairobi to address a meeting of young entrepreneurs with the idea of encouraging them, creating space for them to develop a business relationship with the United States, among others. But also, before he left Washington, he signed the AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act legislation, which would extend that for another 10 years. And this allows products from Africa to enter the United States free of duty. So the United States is making a contribution to the economic growth of Africa and moving away from Africa from aid dependency.
You know, if we were to dwell on the conspiracy theories, I think we'll be here all morning, because some are saying, well, the U.S. is a little nervous now because of China's involvement on the continent, that they've stepped up their efforts. And when you speak of U.S. President Barack Obama and his involvement with young entrepreneurs, well, it brings to mind the Mandela Washington program that is actively going on there, where he is trying to encourage youngsters to be more U.S. friendly, I suppose, as well. Yes. So, I mean, we can spend all morning delving a little bit deeper in that, and I can see that you want to add something to that. I want us to go and take a look at what's going to be happening in Ethiopia, though. He is set to meet with Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma as well as other AU officials there. Speak to us about what we can anticipate with that.
Well, again, I think it's looking at the issues that are of importance for Africa, youth and promotion of women, human rights in general, the whole range of issues that are important to Africa, but also to the United States. He spoke out quite sharply yesterday about the need to control corruption, which is a major issue in many African countries, Nigeria, and he was talking specifically about Kenya and so on. So these are the issues that he will be raising, both when he meets Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. I'm sure the question of women's rights will resonate with her. And she, in turn, of course, will talk about the 2063 agenda, which is to uplift Africa. And the United States can play a role in helping achieve those objectives. So it's a wide open agenda for all the issues that both sides regard as important.
If I may also become devil's advocate for another minute or two, Obama is facing some of his worst ratings ever since he became president. I mean, that yes, we can dream quickly dwindled, especially when he came into his second term in office. Some are saying that he should be the last person to take a moral high ground on things such as corruption and things such as security, especially since just as he landed in Kenya, there was another shooting incident where someone walked into a cinema and randomly opened fire. So is he someone who can take the moral high ground on any of these issues?
Well, he said in an interview this past week now that it was one of his great disappointments that there was no gun control in the United States. The number of people who regard it as their right to own guns is higher than almost anywhere else in the world. And then you see the result of this in a number of these shootings that have taken place across the United States recently. So he's very much aware of that gun issue, that you know, the United States record is the worst in the world for people just shooting randomly and killing people. I think his African trip will actually raise his profile, as it were, that it's something that he can contribute to Africa at the end of his term, because 18 months from now he's out of there and can never go back into the White House. And he's already said that he will devote a lot of his time, once he's out of the White House, to philanthropical work in Africa. Yeah. So I think perhaps he's going out on a high ground than he had achieved up to now, with the very many problems he's had to face during his term.
As briefly as possible, my last question to you, the response of African leaders to Barack Obama. I mean, we saw Uhuru Kenyatta openly disagree with him on the matter of gay rights, saying, you know, with all due respect, you have come here, but you're no superior than any one of us, and we disagree on this, and I'm not going to shy away from that for diplomatic reasons. The response of African leaders to Barack Obama, what do you make of it?
Well, I think that was the one sharp point. The others, I don't think that there was such a disagreement. And when he goes to Ethiopia, or he's in Ethiopia now, when he speaks to the Ethiopian government, he's talking to people who are essentially autocratic in the way they run that country. They won 100% of the vote in the recent elections. That doesn't look like democracy to anybody. But I think he sees it's better to talk to these people than not to talk to them. Very much the same as the policy he has on Cuba.
We'll have to leave it there at least for now. Thank you so much for your thoughts and insight, Tom Wheeler. We'll have to leave it there at least for now. Quick ad break. More when we come back. Stay with us.